Hi there, welcome. Thank you for joining us in our first webinar about startups and tech programs in Portugal, just a few days after the last edition of Web Summit in Lisbon. Today we'll be focusing on the Startup Visa program with Ricardo Louro. We'll explain how to acquire it and the main steps in order to register your startup. We'll also talk with Romana Ibrahim, founder of Keep Warranty app. She will give us a first-hand experience on how to create a startup and the startup general picture in Portugal. And for last but not least, we will have Rafaela Sches, General Manager of Porta de Frente Christis. Will talk to us about the real estate investment in Portugal, the best tech locations, the client types, and everything about real estate. Just so you know, after our session, we'll have a Q&A moment. So you can write down your questions and we will be more than happy to help you at the end of the session. So we will start with Ricardo Louro. We'll explain a bit more about this Startup Visa program. I know that it started at the end of 2017 in Web Summit.
It was regulated in November of 2017. It actually started in 2018 with the final regulation, so it's more or less a year and a half of maybe less because the regulation, if I'm not mistaken, is for February. But okay, let's call it a year and a half of full legislation regarding this this program, which is not a lot of time, especially if we are discussing the immigration services of Portugal. As everybody knows, they are a bit slow. let's use this terminology.
Yes.
And so it's a new program, let's call it like this. It is aimed for foreigner entrepreneurs who want to develop a innovative business in Portugal or bring a innovative business to Portugal, and now they have this this program which they can enter. I will enter into a bit more regarding this, which means that the developer or the entrepreneur might have his own business in his country, as long as it is outside the Schengen area. This is very important, and or this is his first company that he wants to create in Portugal. So this is mainly the objective, is to bring innovation business or innovative business to Portugal under a visa, a travel visa, in this case not a travel visa but a residency visa, or a residency permit. Being that the visa itself can be converted into a residency permit, and I will go a bit further on your question. This residency permit is only for that activity. So if I come with a certain company, a certain startup that I have of innovation, I cannot go in and work on anything else on this residency permit. I have to work on my company, the activity of my company that I have brought in.
Okay. Is there a minimum age to enter the program?
Has to be 18 years old at least, but he can be 98. There is no limit of age. On the other hand, there is just a minimum of a legal age, which is 18 years old.
Of course. And can you simply register your startup, or are there any requirements of the potential turnover, the value?
There are several criteria. I'm not going to go through them all, but maybe the five. I've selected five criteria to be the most important for us to discuss here, which is, first one is the intention to develop a business or a business activity to produce innovative goods and services with an aim in the internationalization. So always the export or internationalization here in mind. It's to have a project and or established companies that are focused on technology or knowledge. This is the second point. Have a potential to create qualified employment is the third most important requirement. The capacity to set up a company during the program is also has to be ascertained. And finally, within the first 5 years of after the incubation period, it has to have a turnover of 325,000 euros per year.
Okay. After
This
5 years.
after 5 years
Okay.
of the incubation period, because as you know, there is an incubation
Yes.
period. There are registered incubators in Portugal now
Yes.
for this process. So together with the incubator is when the Yapmai, as you know, is the one who are going
Yes.
to call or to prove to the immigration services that this is innovative and it is enter into this visa.
Okay. And do you need to have a minimum amount of money in order to start this process?
The company itself, no. The company
Okay.
itself, no. The entrepreneur has to have a minimum of of 12 times our index of social support,
Okay.
which comes up to a sum around 5,145 euros a year. So let's say 5,500 euros a year. So
Okay.
I think we are okay with that.
Yeah, so we could say that it's a lot different than the Golden Visa program.
Well,
Which you
it's slightly
have to
different. 100 times less investment.
Yes.
So slightly different. Although the Golden Visa aims to, let's say, to give benefits to our economy through other types of investment in Portuguese companies. They are already existent into the banks, into the real estate, which is the most well known, into creating jobs. This is, of course, aimed to a different public. This is aimed mainly because of the way that Portugal is developing legislation and develop means for startups. This is aimed exactly for that, for innovation. And so it's, of course, the criteria have to be different.
Yes. Is this a long and easy process? A fast and difficult process? What is your experience on this?
In legal terms, it shouldn't be more than 6 months for approval, but this is not the case. This is not the case. So we have to, let's say the period more than 6 months. Let's just say this.
And it's an easy process, so an investor can make it on its own.
It's easy to start. It's easier to start, for example, on the Golden Visa because you can start online in your country where you are, and you can go to the Portuguese consulate or embassy of that country and start the process there online, and then just go for the interview after. So it's easy enough when regarding a visa or a residency permit. The type of documentation outside of the scope of the startup, it is the same as any other residency permit. So normal documentation. I'm not going to go into that, but normal bureaucratic documentation. So you have to have patience and have to be authenticated or apostilled, or depending on the country, if it is in the Hague Convention or not. So it might be more or less difficult regarding the entrepreneur itself. It's no, again, summarizing, it's no more difficult than the documentation for a pension visa or a student visa.
The usual document.
The usual doc. Let's call it like that. The usual documentation. Yes.
Okay. Just one more last question. This is a relatively recent program. Do you think it has been attracting many new investors to Portugal?
I have official statistics here up until May of 2019, where I have the 103 applications submitted. Of these 103 applications submitted, we have 49 approvals. It doesn't mean that the other ones were rejected. Someone, of course, there were. Others are in that period of over 6 months that we
that short process.
Yes, that short process time. Yeah, exactly that.
Do you think it's this program have a future?
I think most definitely it has a future. I think that Portugal legislatively is investing a lot in updating its ordinance and its legislation regarding to new technologies and to innovation. But personally, I think since we don't have a big market, we cannot produce cars, we cannot manufacture, and we are small. So making a name on tourism, which we already did, and in innovation and new technology, I think it can contribute a lot to our future and and to good economical development.
Yes, thank you.
Well,
Now I'll talk with Romana. Thank you, Romana, for being
Thank you.
here. I'm sure you've been asked this question a million times, but we have to ask, how did the idea of Keep Warranty come to you?
Well, it came on a Sunday afternoon. Usually we have a Sunday lunch in my parents' house with all the family, and after lunch we do a competition of PlayStation with the kids. And on that Sunday the PlayStation didn't turn on. The first question was, where is the invoice in the warranty? And nobody knew. It was a quite new PlayStation. We went back to the store where we bought it with a card, with a loyalty card, and they told us without the invoice, without the warranty, there's nothing we can do. We had to buy a new one, spend almost 400 euros at the time, and on the way back home, I was with my brother, and we were complaining about warranties, and we don't make use of them, we never know where they are.
We lose them
Immediately. When we take a picture, it's just one more picture in our smartphones. When we have it in our email, is one more email in the millions of emails that we have. And in fact, there is no something techy that supports us and make our life easier. That's how the idea to create Keep Warranty came up. I remember drawing the app in one of those envelopes that we have in the car. And the next day we were contacting some developers to support us in developing Keep Warranty. Yeah.
Yes, and was it easy to create this app? Can you share with us the obstacles, the difficulties you had along the process?
Well, we were very focused in making people's life easier. That's our aim always. How can we make the end consumer's life easier and make them use their rights? So keeping this focused and putting this ahead with the developers, it wasn't that hard. Because every time they were trying to make it harder and complicating, we were just, remember the focus is this one. So at one point they were the ones already using and saying, oh yes, remember we need to keep in mind that this is for the end customer. So it wasn't that hard. We just hired at the time, we are not developers, neither me or my brother. So we hired a company at that time to support us in the development of Keep Warranty. And after a few months, we hired our own team that is currently working in the new version of Keep Warranty that will be available in the market very soon.
Okay. Do you believe that Portugal can compete with other European and worldwide markets in the tech industry?
Well, the Portuguese market grew a lot. It's growing at full speed. So I believe that we have very good, a very good future ahead of us. The other hub spots, just like Berlin, Amsterdam, London, even Paris now, they are quite strong. But we see the big companies coming to Portugal, and that's a very good sign. It's now a matter of having the great and the most important players and the government as well supporting everything to make sure that we have the right environment, providing that things proceed. And plus we have a very good quality in terms of human capital. We have very good universities here in Portugal. The best technicians are in Portugal. In fact, these companies are hiring all these technicians. So a good future is ahead of us, and we just finished the Web Summit. And these technological events just bring a lot of people and put Portugal in the map.
And do you think the Portuguese incubators are capable enough to respond to these growing markets in Portugal?
Well, in our case, we were accelerated by Startup Bootcamp in Amsterdam. We are currently incubated in Startup Lisbon, So we have a bit of experience in an international market and in the Portuguese market as well. And I'm quite surprised that in Portugal, the startup Lisboa, they are 7 years old and they supported more than 150 million euros of investment in Portuguese startups. And this happened in 7 years. So the investment is here, the support is here. What is very important to say is that the work needs to be done by both parties. And the startups need to be focused delivering their products as well. Because there's the work can't be just done by the incubator. And they won't deliver and they won't support you if you don't have the work done and if you don't have the right product as well.
Okay. You won the Founder of the Year award by Portuguese Women in Tech in 2018. Is technology a world with gender equality, or do you think there's still a struggle to overcome this? What's your input as a woman in a tech world?
Well, I come from a corporate world. I mean, I'm in a tech startup world. I was the first founder of the year by Portuguese Women in Tech. I'm involved in the Women in Tech board here in Portugal. I'm the Women in Tech ambassador in Angola. So I'm involved in all of these. There's an education gap that we can't avoid. And it's very important to clarify that this education gap will take years to get a balance. So we can't just say that in 2 years we will have the same number of women and men in companies. And we can't hire women just because we want the same number of women and men in companies. Companies are made by founders. It doesn't matter if they are women or men, and it doesn't depend. Their background doesn't. It's not pertinent for whatever they are doing. But then we have the management, and at the end, companies are about numbers and end results. And it is very important that we focus in this end results. Now, regarding the gender gap, it exists. It is very important that we focus on activities and the big companies focusing the activities that can support women, and not just saying the gap exists and there's nothing we can do. And then sometimes it's as simple as providing information to young girls and explaining them what they can achieve by going for a tech world, showing them role models. It seems so simple, but sometimes it's so important for them to see people that achieved something, because this way they can understand, oh, so this is what I will get if I go and going from this course. Yeah.
Okay. What do you think are the next steps for Portugal on the technology path?
Well, I think that we need, taking in consideration our experience, it is very important that we have a support from the government in terms of all the regulatory support that we need, not only by Banco de Portugal, ISTF, the CMVM, that have all the legislation is applied exactly in the same way to startups and big corporations. And using a sandbox would be something to take in consideration, would support a lot of what startups are doing, and it would make it very much easier to put their products in the market. That would be a way. Another thing that would be very important would be to take in consideration the taxes that we pay. We know that in Portugal we have a high taxes level, and it's something that needs to be understood for the startup world. And we have the relation between startups and incumbents that is fundamental to put the products of startups and make sure that the incumbents have innovation in their companies.
Just one last question. As an inspiration for success, what advice can you give to those who want to invest and create a new project and have a new idea?
Well, it's kind of a double question. Answer the first one, Anna. What can I tell you? Investment, and we have investors investing in different areas. It's not just investing. It is very important that investors take in consideration that there is a part that is called innovation, and to make sure that I'm creating the next big thing, innovation is essential. I can talk about AI, I can talk about machine learning, I can talk about all types of technology, but for all of that, I need an investment in innovation. I need a great team behind, I need all of that. But I have a risk with me, but this investment in innovation is fundamental to create the new product that will be absorbed by everyone. On the other hand, startups, yes, we need startups. They are, in fact, they are feeding companies, and it's a way for companies to absorb new products and to put new products in the market very, very easy in a very fast way. But to make sure that they are doing a great job, we need the right team with us. It's not easy to find the right team and to find that they are focused to deliver not just the best practices, because with this VUCA world where we are right now, it's not just about the practices, it's about the thinking, delivering work, and at the end delivering something that people will use. It's not just about us that are creating, it's about who will use that product.
And in a world where we have apps for everything, would you consider it still is possible to create something really, really new?
I think it's possible
It's
to
getting
create.
easier or more difficult?
No, the retention of clients, it's getting an issue, and it's important for big corporates to understand that it's not the time to have one more app for each company. It's time to have the app that just consolidates everything that the end customer uses. It's time to make people's life easier and not just an ego where we want our brand to be there.
Yes. Thank you. I'll get back to you soon.
Now
I'll talk with Rafael a little bit about the real estate market. We have a lot of companies that came to Portugal to establish their business, big companies. Do you feel in Porto de Frente that the client has also changed with these new businessmen who come to Portugal? What is this client?
Yes, it's but going a little bit earlier about the gap, gender gap. We have to fill this gap that we have in our company because 70%, 75% of our companies are women.
Yes.
So we have to fill with men in our company. It's something that suddenly I was worried about.
But I'm totally. I'm not a feminist at all. I'm totally for companies and for results.
Yeah.
And that's how things I think should be.
Yeah, that's what we do. That's why we have so many.
So many women.
Yeah.
Yes.
But getting back to your question, yes, we feel now. Well, let's put this 3 or 4 years ago. We have to fill a gap because we had a huge demand and few offer in our market, financial market, in general terms. And since last year, we feel that now it's balanced. So we have the offer balanced with the demand. So we have to search new niches of market, new demands, and of course this one is one of them. So people that are coming to work in Portugal, and they already are in Portugal, and like you said, there are a lot of Portuguese very skilled professionals that work in those technological companies, that they have their own lifestyle and they only have their own demands. And of course, it's the residential market has to adapt to that demand. And I think they are now finally we have some products that to sell that are matching those requirements.
It's a fact there are several technological centers in Oeiras, a location just minutes away from Lisbon and Cascais. You have a few tech centers there. What can you tell us about this city? Can you explain a bit more about the properties we have there?
Yeah, we are now starting in Oeiras a few quite significant number of new developments that are they were think to fulfill that demand. And I believe that in the next 2-3 years we'll have an offer of apartments and because these people doesn't want big areas, doesn't want a big house with a lot of corridors, with a big kitchen. They want a practical apartment where they can have their own stuff. They don't have much stuff, so they want to live well. And I think that now finally the market is adapting, and finally the developers are looking at that market, specific market. And Oeiras is one of the regions that are looking very deeply on that.
And the properties in Oeiras have better prices than in Lisbon.
Yeah, that's another thing that is very
Cascais.
that's another thing that's very interesting because in Oeiras is a recent region. I mean, recent 50 years perhaps, which is very recent for us because Lisbon has 1,000 years, no? And Cascais several hundred years. So Oeiras is new. It's a place where everything is being done recently. So the prices are, it doesn't have the same glamour of Lisbon or Cascais. So it's an asset because you can buy in Oeiras, I would say, the same kind of apartment, well, in general terms, for half the price of what we can buy in Lisbon or in Cascais, but the prices are more or less the same per square meter, Cascais and Lisbon, for the same kind of areas. So I think Oeiras is a very good investment at this moment, and it will be in the future because there are a lot of companies, like you said, that are establishing in Oeiras. It's a very interesting place for digital and technological companies, innovative companies. So I think it will be a great place in a few years.
Okay. And for those who still prefer to stay in the city center, do you have any specific product that you think fits this type of clients?
Finally, we have.
Good news then.
Good news. We have launched today a new development with only 20 apartments, which is called YUP, Young Urban Property, which fits perfectly in this market, and it has all these characteristics of small apartments, very well programmed, very well designed, with only the necessary to this kind of public, to this kind of clients. It's very versatile because in a T2 you can transform it in a T1 or a T0. At night you have a T0, in the afternoon you have a T1, 1 bedroom, and at night, if you have your kids or someone coming in, your mother, you can have a 2-bedroom apartment. So it's very versatile and it's a great project, and it's the first one we have specifically to this kind of clients.
Okay, and those apartments have parking?
Sure, they all have at least one parking place, and some of them too.
And this type of young and modern clients, do they usually buy or rent? What is your experience?
Yes, I think that they, in the first years of their life, they rent because they don't have enough income to buy. But I think things are changing, and these people have considerable income per year because, like you said, they are the top of the world market in their field, and so the income is becoming very considerable, and so after the second or third year of working, they have enough money to buy. And with the interest rates at the level that we have today, it's pretty easy for them to buy. But you are right, in the first years they rent. So this is a very good product for investors and for final buyers, because the investors can rent to this kind of people with a good yield, and then they can sell in some years. And so I think it's a great investment at this point.
Okay, thank you. We'll now start our Q&A session. Please write your questions directly into our YouTube channel. I'll start with Rafael. An investor would like to know that with the prices a little above the usual in Portugal, is it still possible to rent an apartment and have a good profit as an investor?
Yes, because the rental, if you search today in Lisbon or in Cascais or even in Oeiras to rent, you don't have much choices. So I think it still is a good investment in real estate to put it in the rental market. You do that experience and you will find out that you don't have much choice, especially if you want in specific areas, you don't get much choice. So that's the first sign that it's still a good investment to do.
Romana, one for you. If you have a great idea and want to create a startup, is it easy to get an investor in Portugal?
Well, it is very important to make a validation of that idea.
Okay.
Just an idea, we can all have an idea.
Yeah.
What I mean is that you should go forward with your idea, but it's very important to make a validation of it. Test it, validate it, and then the investors will probably come. But there's a hard work behind.
Okay.
Yes.
It usually is a long process in your perspective.
Investors, they are there. They are looking forward to invest in good projects, but they need to feel people are engaged, and it's not something that will happen in just a few months. People need to see you. People need to understand that you are really engaged in your project, that you are really focused and dedicated. And what happens in the startup world, for what I see, is that people are sometimes dedicated to various projects, and sometimes they still have a full-time job, and they have some startups that they are creating, and they will see if it will work or not. And an investor will never invest in something like that.
Yeah.
It makes sense. So imagine yourself, if you would put your money in that idea, you wouldn't.
Yeah.
So put yourself in that investor's shoes. It's important, and you wouldn't proceed. So if you have an idea, validate it, test it, put your product in the market, develop your product, put your product in the market, be there, bring the traction, and things will come.
Thank you. Ricardo, do you think it's easier to come to Portugal with the startup created, or the other way around, with nothing and create it here?
Well,
Legally speaking.
it's the same issue, because the startup cannot be created within Schengen space. So it has to be outside. If you exist already, if you have already a business, it has to be outside Schengen area. You have to bring it here. The only difference is that for you as an entrepreneur, you already know how to set up the idea, because you already done it once. So from the entrepreneurial perspective, it's easier. For the legal aspect, it's exactly the same.
Okay, this one is for Romana. Is there a place in Lisbon where startups concentrated?
There are many places. Startup Lisboa is one of them. Founder Institute, they are also doing a great job. I'm a mentor there. So there are more and more places, but these two, I'm related with both. My startup is incubating Startup Lisboa.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a mentor in Founder Institute, and they are both great.
Okay, just one last for Rafael. Can you talk with us a bit about, more about the neighborhoods in Lisbon? Which do you think are more fit to this kind of clients? More modern areas or urban neighborhoods?
I don't think there is a specific area for this kind of people. There are several neighborhoods that can accommodate this new young people that has their own needs. Perhaps most of them like to go out at night. They don't eat much at home. I think that the historical areas are good for them. I don't think that this kind of people want to go to the surrounding areas of Lisbon. I don't think it's the purpose.
Mm-hmm.
They have income to buy or to rent in more central areas where everything happens. But they don't need to be in Chiado, they don't need to be doing Avenida Liberdade, they don't need to be doing Castilho. So, I mean, that's perhaps the most expensive areas of Lisbon are not for them. There are other areas like Avenidas Novas, Graça, Campo Santana, where UP is, that the prices are perhaps 30 or 40% lower than in these historical areas, and I think that they have the same kind of life. And well, Lisbon, it's a very small city. You can be anywhere in 10-15 minutes. So the place where you live, if you want to go to Santos, to bars and nightclubs and everything, it's only 10 and 15 minutes if you live in Avenidas Novas or in Graça or in other areas, not really in the center.
Mm-hmm.
Because Lisbon is a very, very small city and you can go anywhere.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, it's wonderful because you can go anywhere even from the airport to the center of Lisbon, you get there in 15 minutes. So it's not, they don't need to be in the center and historical areas to have access to all the things that they want.
Even if they want to go to the beach, to come to Cascais, it's
Cascais
quite easy, right?
quite easy. It's only 25 minutes by train, so they can surf, they can do windsurf, kite surf, riding a bike to Sintra, and it's very easy, and I think it's one of the very important assets that we have is being small.
Yeah.
And being small in this case is great.
I don't know if you want to add any comments or something. We're about to finish our session. If you have any more questions, you can still write them. We'll address them after. If you have any questions for Romana, Ricardo, or Rafael, please email us. We'll be happy to help you later. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Romana, Ricardo, and Rafael.
Thank you.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.